Well, more than 1,500 amendments are currently in consideration for the annual National Defense Authorization Act bill. A number of those proposed by Republicans have very specific objectives in mind. And having the full backing of our next guest, Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick. Sir, we've had you on this thing for many, many times. Talk to me about the most important things that you have specifically against the Green New Deal and putting bullets in bad guys and not social experiments.
Well, the good news is this is a conservative bill. The faster I know people are like, why are you in a hurry to get it passed? Because if we don't get it passed, then the Senate gets first dibs, and then we end up with a less conservative bill. We've gotten rid of all the wolf culture. We've defunded things that have nothing to do with fighting wars. We want to put death to all the bad guys out there. That's what we're good at in the military. That's what we're trained for. That's the whole mission, is to put an end to bad guys. When you talk about a military aircraft, you're not going to have electric-powered aircraft. You want to have something with a positive thrust-to-weight ratio if you're going to win a combat. And we've done all those things that support our military, the mission, and winning wars.
Yeah, well, there was a story today about the scientist. I want to get over into COVID a little bit. It suppressed the COVID lab leak theory for the fear of retribution of the Chinese government like here in America. OK, so just for fun, let's look at back how the liberal media just thumbed their noses at these so-called conspiracy theories by conservatives. Play that.
Something you probably have heard from a certain corner of the right is this theory that the coronavirus, quote, escaped from the lab.
U.S. officials, including President Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, have been claiming that it came from a lab in Wuhan, China.
The stuff that you wrote about and that is sort of out there is as loony as trying to draw Anthony Fauci in a weird sort of biolab conspiracy theory.
They were all wrong. None of them apologized. And how do we have an accountable medical system, and how do we have faith in our institutions if this is the information being given to their left-wing lackey medias?
And how do you learn? The whole reason that we have a coronavirus hearing is to make sure that we learn from our mistakes. We don't repeat that. One of the biggest mistakes we did is we politicized this disease. Mm-hmm. And when we did that, we misinterpreted where it came from. It's obvious. As a scientist, as an ER doctor, as somebody who takes this very seriously, there is no evidence in nature that it's ever propagated in any of these species that they say, whether it be the raccoon dog or a civet cat or a bat or anything else like that. If it existed in that species, it would still exist. It doesn't. You can't just by saying you found a coronavirus around some DNA, RNA. What if I find the coronavirus on wood? It didn't come from wood, obviously.
Didn't come
so
from
let's have a
tree,
real conversation. That's right. Let's have a scientific conversation. We know it came from a lab that said they were going to do this gain of function research. They asked for funding for it, and then soon thereafter it became the epicenter of a pandemic.
It also says it on the front of the lab in Chinese and in English that it's a coronavirus research lab. But real quick before I let you go, the bigger problem here is in the medical field, the greatest power for progress is dissent and challenging opinions. When you're in medical school, you do rounds where all you do is juxtapose each other's opinions. Why was that shut down?
So this is where we get into some really concerning behavior by the government. Look at what government did as an example, and everything they did in COVID. They used this as an example for the biggest power grab in American history, where they could shut down your business, where they could shut down a doctor, a medical professional, because I have a dissenting opinion, that turned out to be right. Think about that. When the government determines what's moral, what's medical, what's commercial, when they start determining things that is in opposition to the Constitution of the United States, which is supposed to empower us, the people, over a government, and we flip-flop that over this coronavirus. And that is the most concerning thing I see, is when the government becomes so powerful they can suppress their own people.
Yeah, now we sit here dissecting this and learn that COVID was probably the biggest wealth transfer scam we've ever seen. Congressman McCormick, we appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much.
All right, coming up.